The F1 off-season does feel like a long time. Months and months of seeing just nothing. Waiting for the latest bit of news or gossip to pop onto your phone's notifications. Seeing a team principal or driver let off some steam with some winter break comments to the media. But other than that, there just isn't much to keep you entertained while the sport is on its holiday. Especially this year, where all the drivers you saw at the end of 2023, you'll see in the same seats at the beginning of 2024. I mean, how boring is that? Drive to Survive? Well, I guess they did, didn't they? I'm just being sarcastic, don't worry. So, what do you do to pass the time until the first Grand Prix weekend in Bahrain begins in late February? My best suggestions are to take a look at other live motorsport events that take place before F1 starts. Cough cough Daytona 24 Hours, cough cough Monte Carlo Rally, etc. Or watch back old races. And if I had to recommend one brilliant race that you've probably never seen before, then I'd watch the entirety of this, the 1998 Canadian Grand Prix. The year of 1998 was a time of big change in Formula 1. A drastically different look with higher noses, along with grooved tyres. Plus, it was also the last season for Tyrrell. I know in the grand scheme of things that wasn't exactly a big change, however I thought I'd still mention it all the same. As the circus headed into North America, the teams arrived at a cloudy Montreal, ready for another weekend on the adored track of Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. In qualifying, and well, who would have guessed it? The McLarens would be starting on the front row. David Coulthard would be on pole position, ahead of his teammate Mika Hakkinen by 69 hundredths of a second. The rest of the top 10 was made up by Michael Schumacher, Fisichella's Benetton, Ralf Schumacher's Jordan, Jacques Villeneuve, Frentzen, Irvine, Alesi Sauber and Damon Hill's Jordan, with the field being completed by the Tyrrell of Ricardo Rosset. The field set off, well, almost the whole field if we ignore Ralf Schumacher, and piled down to turn 1, with complete and utter bedlam setting off. The Benetton of Alexander Wurz was on the inside of Alesi Sauber, with nowhere to go other than the grass to try and avoid a collision, which he wasn't able to avoid. Making wheel-to-wheel contact, his car went onto its roll bar before barrel rolling 3 times in a shower of debris, with loose wheels littered across the gravel trap, and the red flag also being displayed. This collision would involve both Saubers, Alesi and Johnny Herbert, and the Prost of Jarno Trulli, putting all 4 of them out of the race. Except it wouldn't, because this was back in the day where teams were allowed to use a spare car in case of scenarios such as this. Wurz, Trulli and Alesi got into each of their team's respective spare cars, whilst Johnny Herbert's Sauber got repaired for the restart. So in truth, if you boil it down, all that first attempt at a restart did was cause several hundreds of thousands of currency of damage, just for all the drivers to restart the event like nothing occurred. Anyhow, attempt number 2, where every driver at least got off the line this time, although Hakkinen doesn't get a whole lot further than that thanks to his transmission jamming. But then chaos raged once again, with Ralf Schumacher yeeting it across the grass and spinning out of control, with everyone trying to panically avoid Ralf as well as each other. But more severe contact was made, with the Prost of Jarno Trulli climbing onto the back of Alesi Sauber, and creating an F1 sculpture that would only look more in place at an art gallery. The safety car was brought out again, and with no backup car to the backup car available, Alesi and Trulli were most definitely out this time. So in 2 attempts, the furthest the pair had successfully managed to get was midway through turn 2 on the first lap. Seems as though the racing gods were absolutely determined to put them out of the race as quickly as possible. Along with those 2, Ralf Schumacher was out with a broken gearbox, Toro Takagi's Tyrrell was also out with a transmission problem, and as Hakkinen went to his pit box to retire the car, Eddie Irvine pitted with a rear left puncture. Back to the green flag, and with all the carnage going on, it's easy to forget that there was an actual motor race going on, with Coulthard leading Michael Schumacher and Fisichella. Whilst the leading pair pulled a commanding gap to the Benetton, it was plain to see that at this stage of the race, Schumacher was a heck of a lot faster, but just couldn't find a way past Coulthard. It was a thrilling duel between the pair, but the overarching hand of chaos was always lurking to strike again. Barrichello Stewart would go off at the hairpin, losing an impressive 4th place in the process. Then Pedro Diniz's arrows would get into some antics, getting caught out almost by the other Stewart of Jan Magnussen. However, the arrows would proceed to put an inordinate amount of grass onto the track, leaving drivers having to make last-ditch manoeuvres to avoid those pieces, until it was decided that the safety car needed to be deployed. Perhaps it's not surprising that a wildlife version of a Formula 1 car didn't ever catch on. Coulthard led the restart, but wouldn't lead that many more laps. A throttle linkage failure would put him out of the race, giving Michael the opportunity to head the field when the next safety car period occurred. This time, the other arrows of Mika Salo would get into contact with Johnny Herbert, putting both drivers out of the race, as well as putting all the Sauber team members out of their misery. Schumacher decided that he didn't want to lead the field and took the time to pit instead, but as he came back on the circuit, Heinz-Harald Frenzen's Williams tried to avoid, but got onto the grass, lost the rear end, got stuck in the gravel, threw his steering wheel and retired from the race. Fisichella was now in control of the restart, but got the chicane a bit wrong, giving Villeneuve the chance to take the lead at his home Grand Prix, which he couldn't pull off, going wide at turn 1 and not being able to make turn 2. And he wasn't out of the woods just yet, because as he came back onto the circuit, the Minardi of Esteban Tuero made contact with him, with the Argentinian losing his front wing in the process. Whilst he would keep going, he would eventually retire on lap 53 with an electrical issue. Now it's time for a temporary moment of appreciation for amazing camera angles such as these. Okay, with that completed, let's get back to the story of the race. Schumacher was given a hefty penalty for the moment involving Frentzen, a wait of 10 seconds in the pits. This would lead Schumacher to not be in the lead, with Fisichella back in first place, who was on a one-stop strategy. Michael's penalty also put him behind Damon Hill's Jordan, but that didn't last that long. Plus, it was never going to last too much longer anyway. Electrical issues put him out on lap 42. Before then, the other Prost of Olivier Panis would lose the engine, causing the helpless Frenchman to lose control and get stuck in the gravel. But the safety car was not deployed. Now it's time for a brief moment of Minardi M198 appreciation. Okay, I think that's brief enough. Back to the race, and Fisichella came in for his only stop of said race. But when Schumacher came in for his next stop, he was ahead of the Benetton, and even with another pit stop for fuel, Schumacher was ahead, which just left the German the relatively simple task of bringing it home, which he did, taking victory by 16.5 seconds over Fisichella. Irvine's Ferrari would end up third after his puncture, whilst in fourth, it was the other Benetton of Alexander Wurz. Just for context, in case you needed reminding, this was how his race was looking a couple of hours earlier. This is now the site of someone who would end the same race with 3 points under his belt. Barrichello was 5th, ahead of his teammate Jan Magnussen, who held off a very determined Shinji Nakano in the Minardi, giving a double points finish for the Stewarts, even though this would turn out to be Magnussen's last race in Formula 1, and his only points finish as well. Overall, an absolutely awesome race this one. Very unpredictable, drama aplenty, battles and close racing for most of the event, a race of attrition with just 10 finishes at the end, along with 9 of those retirements occurring before lap 20. It's a highly underrated race, I feel, this one, and is one that I would very much recommend that you go and watch the entirety of later on, as there is a fair amount of battling that I didn't cover in all that much detail. But if I did, then this video would end up being far too long. And with that, that is going to be the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, then I would be incredibly appreciative if you did hit the like and subscribe buttons. However, thank you very much for watching, and until the next video, be kind to each other and enjoy the rest of your day. Okay, maybe one more bit of Minardi M198 appreciation before we go.